Hey guys, how you doing? This is Tony Tone, the Chess Side Settle. Guys, today we're going to learn about a very cool special move, very popular in chess, called castling. You can either castle to the right or to the left. Now, the purpose of castling, and I'm going to show you here in a second, is for king safety. There is nothing more important in the game of chess than the safety of your king. So when you do castle, we recommend, and there are rare exceptions now, that is as far as the first three opening principles, you should castle and castle early. Again, there is an exception to everything in the game of chess, just like life. And if you find that exception, fine. But other than that, you want to castle early, meaning within the first 10 moves that you make. And that applies to both black and the white army. So I'm going to show you here what it is. It's the only time that the king actually moves more than once. It actually moves twice. So for example, I don't have anything else on the board, just this little right here, this little setup. So let's say, he developed like this. Now I'm going to show you what the requirements are for castling. The first thing is that the king has never moved. If the king has moved previously, let's say you moved here and you're playing the game and it moved, you forfeit the right to castle. So the very first requirement is that the king cannot have moved at all. The second requirement is that nobody can be in between the king and its rook. And again, that I'll show you the left side, but I'm showing you the king side first, the right side, or what's known as king side castling. So the king hasn't moved. There's nobody in between these two. The rook itself cannot move it at all. So let's say the rook previously moved and he came back. You cannot castle anymore. You forfeit the right to castle. So rook hasn't moved, king hasn't moved, no one's in between. Now, what you do is you take the king, you touch the king first. You don't touch the rook, and you don't use two hands. You use one hand only. You touch the king first, and you go over 2 squares to the right. 1, 2, and this rook hops right over it directly next to its king. Not over here, directly right next to it. So if you notice, this creates a nice little fortress right here on this side. The same exact thing applies to the queen side. So for example, let's say it's here. You have this here, here. And we actually have a queen in the way here. So the difference is you're still only moving 2 squares, whether you go to the right or to the left, which is called queen side castling, because these are the queen's men. But let's say, for example, he also moved out like this, right? You still can't castle here. The queen has to get out of the way somewhere. It has to be out of the way. Now, look, the rook hasn't moved. The king hasn't moved. Nobody's in between. I almost messed up this video. Nobody's in between. And now I can castle. Now, even though it's a longer route, that doesn't mean you go 3 squares. It's only 2 squares, whether it's to the right, king side castling, or to the left, queen side castling. That's 1, 2. Then the rook hops right over it, right next to its king. It does not go here or here. It's directly next to it. Now, look at this fortress on this side of the board. The same thing. Now, let's talk about some other requirements that have to be met, because you can't just castle all the time just on those requirements. So, for example, let's say the queen is, I don't know, over here. This is here. And there's a bishop right here. Now, you can't castle when there's the opposing piece attacking the square that you're going to land on. 1, 2, castle. You cannot do that because you cannot purposely put yourself in check. It's very important. You cannot, it's illegal. You cannot purposely put the king under attack. 2 kings can never be together. They can never be close to each other because they're putting each other in check. So it's very important that you understand this requirement. Another requirement is that the square, let's say this is here. I want to castle queen side. Now look, you see the opposing bishop? It's hitting the square between the rook and the king. So you cannot castle through an attacked square. So you can't do this because look, he would be under attack and end up here. Now he's not under attack now, but you cannot castle through any square that is attacked between the rook and the king. Very important. I want to show you another requirement here, which is super important. All right. Let's say he's here. I want to castle king side. Let's say he's here, right? The king has never moved. The rook has never moved. However, the bishop is attacking the rook. Can you castle in this position when a rook is attacked, either on the left side, the queen side, or the right side, the king side? And the answer is yes, as long as the rook has never moved. So you can still go 1, 2, and then he hops right over. You never make it to the square, so you're not under attack. So that's fine. Very important that you guys understand that you can castle if a rook is being attacked, but the rook has never moved. If the rook had already moved and then it comes back and it's under attack, well, you cannot castle. You forfeit the right to castle. Not because the bishop is attacking the rook, only because the rook previously moved. Remember, it could never have moved. The king could never have moved. There's nobody in between. There's nobody hitting the squares in between, so you can castle. Let's say this bishop is here, right? Let's say he's here. Can I castle now? Yes or no? The answer is no, I cannot. I can move out of the way, but I cannot castle because this bishop is attacking the square, even though it's empty, between the king and the rook. Very, very important. So I hope that was clear. If you want to find out more about that, replay this video a million times or go to Google or chess.com. It's very important that you understand the rules of castling, that it is a special move along with other special moves. But this is one of the most important special moves in all of chess. It's done almost, 99% of the time of your games. Like I said, there are exceptions where you do not want to castle because castling might be a disadvantage towards you. So you only want to do things that safeguard your king and it's an advantage for you. Plus, the other great thing about this is, let's say this is here, it blocks a square. It brings your rook out. So you can develop your rook and you can start to use the rook to attack or to do whatever you need to do. So it accomplishes two main goals. You safeguard the king and you bring and develop the rook out, because if not, it will be stuck here like Chuck in a rut and it can't get out. See? So if I castle 1, 2, I get this rook out, boom. Now I control this file and I can start doing whatever I want later on. Guys, another very important requirement is that if the king is already in check, you cannot castle out of a check. Okay? There's no way, unless, let's say this was here. You can block it with the knight, and then in the next move, whatever he does, then you can castle. But you cannot castle while you're in check. You have to literally move out of the way, and then that means you lose the opportunity to castle, to ever castle. You only castle once in a chess game. So you'd have to move out of the way, or you'd have to block it like that. That's another way. But let's say let's say he's here. You cannot, and let's say he moves here. He puts you in check. You cannot stay in check because it's illegal. You have to get out of check. You either block it or move it or take the attacker. You can't do any of those in this situation. So you have to physically move like this, but you cannot get out of a check and then castle to save your king. That is illegal. I just wanted to mention that.